Okay, let's jump right into it. A few months ago, I made a long-ish video in which I talked about the Magnus archives and what it accomplishes in terms of effective storytelling. In said video, I talk about how I liked the ending because it was a combination of grim and optimistic. The bad guys technically win, but there's a chance that things work out. I don't really think I'm wrong, but a few weeks after posting that video, I kind of went insane because I had an epiphany in regards to what the ending is actually about, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it in that video, so I'm talking about it now. Okay, so in the original video, I said that the main themes in the Magnus archives were exploitation and people becoming worse versions of themselves for various reasons, both inside and outside of their control. However, I did just kind of briefly skim over how all of this relates to choice, which was very dumb of me because that's what the entire finale is based around. So let's back up. The Web is and always was the actual main antagonist of the series. Jonah Magnus is the primary visible antagonist, but he was always just one of their puppets who benefited greatly from their goals. Since one of the Web's main sources of terror is the undermining of people's free will, it would make sense that the crux of their plan would rely on someone else making a choice for their benefit, and by someone, I mean John. When John chooses to release the fears, deciding to forgo his revenge on the powers and reject the Eye completely, it is because of his emotional bond with Martin, and vice versa. John made that decision even though it benefited the antagonist, and basically played right into their hand. But it was his decision. Now let's talk about the Web lighter. One of the factors that ultimately led to the Web's victory way down the line was John giving Georgie the Web lighter long before he went up to face Jonah Magnus, thus giving them the power to destroy the archives before he can carry out his plan of sending everyone to end domains. Upon reflection, I feel like it's not a coincidence that the transference of a web-aligned object indirectly led to their plan succeeding. And then I started to think that their plan maybe also hinged on John's desire to protect and be with Martin. Annabelle already admitted in 196 that the Web's plans had to be adjusted because of the bond between the two men, so it kind of makes sense for that bond to be factored into their new approach. So the question I originally wanted to pose in this video was the ending a cleverly plotted evil scheme, or the result of two men loving each other and embracing a hopeful outcome? To which the clever answer would be, well, it's both. But the more I thought about it, even that feels like a weird oversimplification. I don't necessarily think it's an incorrect assessment, but this whole concept seems to reach so far beyond just episode 200. Here are some excerpts from Annabelle's statement in 147.
So many more little factors and wrinkles to push us and pull us, but does any of that actually constitute free will? Free of what? We all have forces that drive us, circumstances that direct us, and even if we choose to ignore these and act against all logic just to prove that we can, is that not simply allowing the existential terror of our own powerlessness to control us instead? Most of one's life is simply spent looking back and convincing yourself that you chose deliberately to act like you did. Unless, of course, none of it was intentional. None of it was planned. The mother is the fear of manipulation and lost control made manifest. So perhaps it is our fear that projects her influence on everything that happens. Like the mind, retrospectively assigning reason to our actions, so we fit whatever occurs into the neatest pattern we can and declare her web both intricate and complete.
So maybe the real question is, how much of the ending can actually be directly attributed to the Web? And I really don't know if that question has a simple or concrete answer. And don't get me wrong, the Web very obviously had direct involvement. They marked John when he was young, gave him the Web lighter in the first place, etc. But because so much of the Web is reliant on the butterfly effect and also isn't always 100% correct in their predictions, for example, Martin didn't become a web avatar and then developed a more complicated bond with John. It's actually pretty ambiguous how much of the series was an actual part of their plan and how much is paranoia on the part of the characters and the audience. That paranoia being the Web's main thing. And while we're talking about the web and whether or not free will exists, I want to touch on the theme of addiction, which I also just kind of glossed over in the previous video. Addiction is a fear directly associated with the web, and this is made explicitly clear in episodes 147 and 172. It makes sense. If you're addicted to a substance, maybe you do genuinely want to stop taking it, but your body craves it and possibly depends on it if you're in danger of serious withdrawal. The metaphor within the series would be John's need to take statements from people in season 4, even though it harms those people. He, on some level, wants to stop doing it, but he continues because he craves them and going without them would cause him genuine harm. John initially wants to blame the web or the eye and say that they were mind controlling him into doing it, but that was not the case. He was making those choices on his own. They were his choices, but also... were they? Because it's not like being an eye avatar is a life that John wanted. This theme as a whole is summed up by Elias in episode 92. It's honestly the best and most important line in the series.
You never wanted this, no. But I'm afraid you absolutely did choose it.
This applies to everything. Working at the Institute, drinking people's fear, being the capital A archivist, and letting the fears go in the finale. John didn't want any of that, but in some way, shape, or form, those were the result of his choices. And this applies to the other characters too, in a lot of ways. Basically, everyone who worked in the Institute was stuck making choices that they really didn't want to make. People in the real world make choices all the time that they probably don't really want to make, but they feel like they have to for the sake of their job, for the sake of other people, or for other factors outside of their control, like addiction, mental illness, poverty. Life is a series of choices with unforeseen consequences, and I think the Magnus Archives really captures that. So yeah, thank you for bearing with me for a second time, and those are hopefully my final thoughts on the Magnus Archives. I do have another video recorded, and hopefully it will be out next month. It is not about the Magnus Archives, it is about something else. So I'll see you there. Bye!